A lot is expected of an NFL quarterback in today's day and age. Some may instantly get it and sort of success, while others will get thrown into the fire and not come out alive. And there will be another group of quarterbacks who have to wait 1, 2, or even 3 years before they can take on the role as a franchise quarterback. This was the position that the bad man Aaron Rodgers had to take on while backing up a Brett Favre who was already in the twilight of his NFL career. Leading up to this point, Aaron Rodgers didn't also exactly have a smooth sailing college career, to say the least. Would you believe me if I told you that with all the immense amount of gifts and talents that Aaron Rodgers had at the quarterback position, that he could attract very little interest from Division I schools out of high school? After being given a preferred walk-on at the University of Illinois, he decided to go the JUCO route and light everything up at Butte Community College. Throwing 26 touchdowns and leading his team to a 10-1 record and the number 2 ranking in the country, Rodgers then ascended to the University of California. And in doing just 2 seasons, while throwing for over 5,900 yards, 43 touchdowns, and having an 18-7 record at the quarterback position, Aaron Rodgers officially declared for the NFL draft. Scouts most definitely liked his strong arm, mechanics, release, ability to make a variety of throws, but they were also worried about his size and ability to perform outside of a California system that was great for quarterbacks. And despite at one point being projected to be the first overall pick in the 2005 draft, Aaron Rodgers would slide all the way down to the 24th spot where he would be taken by the Green Bay Packers. Who would turn out to be the new number 1 overall pick? That would turn out to be quarterback Alex Smith out of Utah. A quarterback who had a 21-1 record in college, with one of those wins actually coming against Aaron Rodgers. Despite never amounting to the greatness that Aaron Rodgers had, Alex Smith would still carve out a very good career for himself, playing 16 seasons for the 49ers, Chiefs, and Redskins. While Aaron Rodgers was on the sidelines watching Brett Favre play, Alex Smith's start to his career was not that much any better, as he would be dealing with injuries and just overall have poor performance while under Mike Nolan. Most of Alex Smith's success came under head coach Jim Harbaugh, as he would lead the team to the NFC Championship in 2011 and will help them get to the Super Bowl in 2012 before being hurt and replaced by Colin Kaepernick. While Kaepernick would officially take over for the time being in San Francisco, Alex Smith would move on and take his talents to Kansas City, where the NFL would see the best of his career. So after being traded in exchange for picks, Alex Smith became a 3-time Pro Bowler in Kansas City, while leading the team to the playoffs in 4 out of 5 seasons, while having a winning season every year. Unfortunately for Alex Smith in the second time around, there would be another young up-and-coming quarterback that would be under him and learning from him, and that name would be Patrick Mahomes. So just like the 49ers, the Kansas City Chiefs traded Alex Smith to the Washington Redskins at the time in exchange for Kendall Fuller and a 3rd-round pick. And after leading the Redskins to a 6-3 record in his first 9 games, Alex Smith would face one of the most ugly and nasty sports injuries that one could possibly have, which was very eerie and very similar to what Joe Theismann had with the Washington Redskins over 30 years before. When asked about the leg injury that almost killed him, Alex Smith said, quote, "I remember a really funny feeling in my leg. It wasn't like I knew it was broken immediately. It went fuzzy. That's what it felt like. Then it really was the visual when I looked down and could see, that my leg obviously wasn't straight anymore. That told me I had broken it." It can't possibly get any worse than that. Having an injury that could possibly end your career, or even worse, your life. But Alex Smith, it was not the end for him. After over 20 surgeries and treatments to his broken leg, Alex Smith was able to come back in 2020 and win Comeback Player of the Year as part of the football team. And after winning the award and helping Washington get to the playoffs, Alex Smith would officially retire at the end of the 2020 season. The 2nd overall pick will be running back Ronnie Brown, taken by the Miami Dolphins out of Auburn. This is how close we were to getting both Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady in the same division twice a year for many years to come, but instead, Miami would go with one half of a legendary running back duo from the Tigers. Now this is all in hindsight, as Ronnie Brown would still create a very respectable career for himself, playing all the way until 2014. He would still have a great start to his career by becoming an integral part of the Miami Dolphins Wildcat offense that won them the division in 2008. My most fond memory of Brown is watching him score 5 touchdowns versus the Patriots team that had just gone 18-1 the year before in Gillette Stadium, and it had gotten so bad to the point where Patriots fans were just leaving the stadium in shock of what they had just witnessed. But after getting his lone Pro Bowl selection that year as well, his career wouldn't really reach those same heights, as he would be bouncing around to the Eagles, the Chargers, and the Texans later on in his career, and he'd be out of the league by 33 years old. So, great career, but nowhere near his Aaron Rodgers greatness. Braylon Edwards was the 3rd overall pick, taken by the Cleveland Browns as a wide receiver out of the University of Michigan. I know what you're probably thinking, this is another Cleveland Browns player who would instantly be a draft bust and not play good at all. But that's not really the case here. Braylon Edwards was very capable of making big plays all the time. Having a great frame, being able to be a great route runner, and coming off a historic run at the University of Michigan gave him the ability to be a #1 receiver in Cleveland. And his skill was very evident, as he would have 1,200 yards and 16 touchdowns in 2007. But there was one major problem that Braylon Edwards had. He was very inconsistent and had a lot of problems with catching and dropping the ball. He led the league with 23 drops in 2008. We're talking clear as day, wide open, beat the defensive back, all to just drop the ball, have the ball go through his hands, and to piss off the entire stadium. Edwards' inconsistency would plague him throughout his entire career, as he would never reach the amount of success that he had in 2007 again, as he would move on to the New York Jets and later on the Seattle Seahawks before being out of the NFL by 2012. Like I said before, his big playability was always there, but it would be his stone hands that would be his undoing. Cedric Benson was the 4th overall pick, taken by the Chicago Bears out of the University of Texas at running back. Drawing comparisons to Ricky Williams, the hype around Cedric Benson was very real after being a 4-year starter of the Longhorns. But his time in Chicago was nothing but lackluster, to say the least. Despite reaching the Super Bowl in just his 2nd year, it would be an initial holdout in his rookie season, followed by injuries and having to split time with other running backs, and of course, off the field trouble as well. This would all prove Cedric Benson's time in Chicago to be nothing more than a disappointment. Following his time in Chicago, it would be signing with the Cincinnati Bengals that would finally allow his career to go in the right direction. Benson was truly at his best, having 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons while in Cincinnati, which also included the best game of his career coming against his former team, the Chicago Bears. Benson would fail to be re-signed in 2012 after the Bengals going after other options at the running back position, so he would go on to sign with the Packers, where unfortunately a foot injury would place him on injured reserve and would pretty much end his football career for good. The 5th pick in this draft would be running back Cadillac Williams, taken by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers out of Auburn. Williams was the 2nd piece of a running back duo that helped Auburn win their SEC championship and get to the Sugar Bowl. Despite his former Auburn counterpart Ronnie Brown being drafted ahead of him this year, it will be Cadillac Williams who will be winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, rushing for over 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. It's always good to see a rookie have such a fast start to their career, but the question always remains, how long can they keep up such a high level of production? And for Cadillac Williams, it was not long at all. After a slight sophomore slump in 2006, back-to-back knee injuries would keep him off the field for the majority of 2 seasons. Those knee injuries definitely hurt Cadillac Williams, as he would play a full 16-game season just twice in his entire career, and he'd never be able to match the highs that he had as a rookie. That, on top of new young competing talent such as running back LeGarrette Blount, caused Cadillac Williams to move on and sign with the St. Louis Rams, where he played 1 season in 2011 and finished his career there. Adam Jones was the 6th pick, taken by the Tennessee Titans out of West Virginia. While some players got off to a great start and fizzled out in their career, Adam Pac-Man Jones had a very slow and bad start to his career, but got much better as he got older. Floyd Reese, who was the Titans general manager at the time that Pac-Man Jones was drafted, said that he was everything that he had hoped for on the field, but was nothing but a disaster off the field. Multiple suspensions and an arrest kept Jones off the field for 2 entire seasons and even negatively affected him during his time in Dallas as well. Stories like this are always so sad and disappointing to hear about. But his NFL career would finally find his much needed stability from the Cincinnati Bengals. And as a Bengals fan myself, it felt really good to see him finally stay out of trouble and to carve out a very good career for himself in Cincinnati. From 2010 to 2017, Adam Jones found a very important role on the Bengals, where he was a return man and corner, making the Pro Bowl and All-Pro selection on multiple Bengals teams that reached the playoffs. After Adam Jones' time in Cincinnati finally ran its course, he would do a very quick stint with the Denver Broncos and would later announce his retirement. The 7th pick in this draft was wide receiver Troy Williamson out of South Carolina, taken by the Minnesota Vikings. This was their attempt at replacing Randy Moss after all the time he had spent in Minnesota. And in a nutshell, it was a complete disaster. Williamson was a wide receiver with 4.3 speed who claimed that he had a bad depth perception which negatively affected his hand-eye coordination, which kept him from being able to catch the ball and caused a lot of drop passes. And after 3 lackluster seasons in Minnesota, Williamson would be traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars, where he wouldn't have any more than 5 catches in a single season before being released after the 2009 season. Cornerback Antrel Rolle was the 8th pick, taken by the Arizona Cardinals out of Miami. Rolle was originally drafted as a corner, but it would be the safety position that would be his true calling. This is what position that he would play while appearing in the Super Bowl with the Arizona Cardinals and the New York Giants, while also being a 3-time Pro Bowler throughout his 11-year career. Being a true playmaker in both the pass and the run game, Antrel Rolle would still be able to sometimes play the nickel corner position as well. A very versatile and true all-around defensive back, it's very clear that Antrel Rolle's best days were with the New York Giants. After his days with the Giants were over, he would move on and sign with the Chicago Bears. He would play just 1 season before being released and announcing his retirement. The 9th pick was corner Carlos Rogers, taken by the Washington Redskins out of Auburn. Have you ever seen a DB have so many opportunities to get an interception, but yet they just drop the ball? You could be describing Carlos Rogers very good with that. Within his first 6 seasons in Washington, he would once lead the league in pass deflections with 24 of them, but his very best year would come with the San Francisco 49ers. Being a part of 49ers teams that reached the NFC Championship and a Super Bowl, Carlos Rogers' best season came in 2011, where he had 6 interceptions and would reach his only Pro Bowl of his entire career. Following his great time in San Francisco, Rogers would then go on to sign with the Oakland Raiders before officially ending his NFL career. The 10th pick was wide receiver Mike Williams, taken by the Detroit Lions out of USC. You could really say that this was an attempt at drafting Calvin Johnson before Calvin Johnson, as Mike Williams would have a similar 6'5", 240-pound frame like Megatron. There was also quite a bit of controversy surrounding Mike Williams around the time of the draft, as he tried to enter the draft a year early in 2004 after doing just 2 years in college before the United States Court of Appeals overturned the decision to allow players to enter the draft after 2 seasons. So because of that, Mike Williams had to sit out an entire year and couldn't even go back to college before the 2005 draft. And after going through all of this, his NFL career would pretty much instantly fall flat. His best year within his first 3 seasons will be his rookie season, where he had 29 catches for only 350 yards and just 1 touchdown. He would then bounce around to the Raiders and Titans before being out of the league for 2 seasons before rejoining the NFL with the Seattle Seahawks. He would actually be pretty decent with 65 catches for 750 yards, but his production would fall way off a cliff the following year and would be released right after. The Dallas Cowboys took edge rusher Demarcus Ware with the 11th pick out of Troy. While there were many mishaps before Aaron Rodgers, Demarcus Ware was nowhere near a bad pick for the Dallas Cowboys. His Hall of Fame career instantly took off from day one, as he would be a 7-time Pro Bowler in his first 8 seasons. Ware would end up leading the NFL in sacks twice in his career, both with the Cowboys, in which he was a part of some really good Dallas Cowboys teams as well. But those Cowboys teams that Ware was a part of could never really get over the hump, and after being released after 9 seasons, he would now find himself on a contender with the Denver Broncos. While being at the tail end of his career, Demarcus Ware was still being a Pro Bowler and had a big role on the Denver Broncos defense that helped them win the Super Bowl. And after retiring after the 2016 season, we should be seeing Demarcus Ware in the Hall of Fame in the near future. Shawn Merriman was the 12th pick, taken by the San Diego Chargers out of Maryland. Very few defensive players have ever had a faster start to their career than what linebacker Shawn Merriman had in his first 3 seasons. By the time he was just 23 years old, Merriman had already had 39.5 sacks with 3 Pro Bowl selections and being a 2-time All-Pro. This was a very fantastic start to his career, but the downsides to all of this was that Merriman was busted for steroids and eventually suspended, and the years following this great start to his career would be very unlucky for him. From 2008 to 2010, Shawn Merriman had only played just a total of 18 games while dealing with a knee and foot injuries that were said to have been career-ending had he have tried to play even more. This eventually led to the Chargers releasing him, but fortunately, he was able to sign with the Buffalo Bills. And this time, while being in Buffalo, Merriman would tear his Achilles. This of course caused him to miss a ton of time, and as a result, he would only have a total of 2 sacks in his entire time in Buffalo. And following his multiple injuries and disappointment in Buffalo, Shawn Merriman would announce his retirement after the 2012 season. Offensive tackle Jamal Brown was the 13th pick, taken by the New Orleans Saints out of Oklahoma. Being the first offensive lineman taken in this draft, Brown was an instant impact player, starting immediately as a rookie and would eventually be a 2-time Pro Bowler and All-Pro as part of a Saints offense that was one of the top offenses in the league while having Drew Brees as their quarterback. Unfortunately, Jamal Brown was another player who would have injuries that would completely derail their career. A torn ACL would have him replaced and eventually traded to the Washington Redskins, where after doing 2 seasons there, he would have even more injuries to deal with, and by 2012, his injuries would cause him to be out of the NFL entirely. Thomas Davis was the 14th pick, taken by the Carolina Panthers out of Georgia. While some players may peak very fast in their career, Thomas Davis will only get better as he got older. Davis was an anchor on the Carolina Panthers defense for over 13 seasons, where he was a 3-time Pro Bowler and 2-time All-Pro. And despite me being a Falcons fan myself, I really enjoyed watching him play alongside Luke Kuechly as well. And don't get it twisted either, Davis had his fair share of injuries as well, including 3 ACL tears and a completely broken arm. Like, who would not want that kind of linebacker on their team that would be fighting through these injuries and still trying to make an impact on the field? After playing in the Super Bowl with the Panthers and also being a part of great Carolina teams, Thomas Davis would move on to the Los Angeles Chargers and then the Washington football team before announcing his retirement. The Kansas City Chiefs took linebacker Derrick Johnson with the 15th pick out of Texas. With having multiple linebackers drafted ahead of him, Derrick Johnson would not disappoint whatsoever. Being a gap filler and an all-around playmaker on the field, Derrick Johnson was the anchor of a Kansas City Chiefs defense from 2005 to 2017, and just like Thomas Davis, his best years will be when he was getting into his 30s, with his first Pro Bowl selection being at 29 years old. It's very unfortunate, and I actually kind of feel bad for him due to the fact that he wasn't able to be a part of these recent, very good Super Bowl contending Kansas City Chiefs teams. After spending 13 seasons in Arrowhead, Johnson would go on and sign with the Oakland Raiders, but he would only appear in just 6 games before asking for his release, and he would later retire. Defensive tackle Travis Johnson was the 16th overall pick, taken by the Houston Texans out of Florida State. Johnson unfortunately could not live up to the hype of being the top interior defensive lineman in the 2005 draft. Injuries also played a role in Johnson never really panning out in Houston, and as a result, he would be dealt to the San Diego Chargers, where he would play another 2 seasons before being out of the NFL entirely. Another linebacker would be taken with the 17th pick, this time being David Pollack out of Georgia, taken by the Cincinnati Bengals. Of the players drafted before Aaron Rodgers, David Pollack's NFL story is without a doubt the saddest of them all. After being an SEC Defensive Player of the Year at Georgia, Pollack would be an impact player in his very limited time as a rookie in Cincinnati, but his following year in 2006 would prove to be very catastrophic. In week 2 of the 2006 season, Pollack would try to make a tackle, and as a result, he would break his neck, which would end his entire NFL career. Tackling with his head down proved to be very devastating, and even after being medically cleared to return to football, David Pollack decided to call it quits and retire from the NFL. Defensive end Aerys James was the 18th pick, taken by the Minnesota Vikings out of Wisconsin. The Minnesota Vikings would indeed have 2 first-round draft picks within the top 20, and neither of them would end up panning out. After being an All-American and being given the nickname The Eraser for his ability to sack quarterbacks in Wisconsin, James would only have 37 tackles and a total of just 5 sacks, having 3 seasons in Minnesota. Injuries in the lower body also played a role in him just having a very lowly production, which also caused the Vikings to move on from him entirely. And after being dealt to the Redskins in 2008, He would appear in just 5 games, and after being waived, his NFL career would pretty much be over. Offensive tackle Alex Barron was the 19th pick, taken by the St. Louis Rams out of Florida State. After being a 2-time All-American in college, Barron's NFL career would all around just be an utter disappointment. Despite being a starter every year he was in St. Louis, Barron was known for his inconsistency, being responsible for over 50 penalties and giving up over 30 sacks at the offensive tackle position. And even after moving on to the Dallas Cowboys, it would just be more of the same for Barron, and as a result, he wouldn't play another down in Dallas or ever in the NFL. Defensive end Marcus Spears was the 20th pick, taken by the Dallas Cowboys out of LSU. You may know him now as a guy on ESPN, but throughout his NFL career, he was basically an underachiever at the defensive end position. Coach Bill Parcells saw him as a guy who would be an integral piece in moving to a 3-4 defense in Dallas, but throughout his entire career, he was never really an impact player and would just be a rotational guy. He would never have more than 45 tackles or 2.5 sacks in a single season, and after doing 8 seasons in Dallas, he would sign with the Baltimore Ravens, where he would appear in just 5 games before being released. The 21st pick was wide receiver Matt Jones, taken by the Jacksonville Jaguars out of Arkansas. Originally being a quarterback in college, Jones had the perfect size and athletic ability, being 6'6", 240, and running a 4.3 40 to be a Hall of Fame player at the wide receiver position. Like, that is literally the perfect build to play wide receiver. How can one go wrong with that? Playing a brand new position, Matt Jones would originally be putting up some very good numbers all the way up until his 4th year, where everything came crumbling down. While in the middle of having the best season of his 4-year career so far, Matt Jones would be suspended by the NFL for violating the league's substance abuse policy. This, on top of multiple arrests following that, would bring his NFL career to a very abrupt end. Mark Clayton was the 22nd pick, taken by the Baltimore Ravens out of Oklahoma. Being the opposite of Matt Jones in terms of size, Clayton would have some very solid years in Baltimore and would at one point be the number 1 wide receiver there too. His best season would be his 2nd year in 2006, where he'd have 67 catches for 939 yards and 5 touchdowns. The unfortunate thing about Mark Clayton's career, however, is that he never really had one true, solid quarterback to grow with, and that would in fact hurt his numbers at wide receiver too. He'd have Steve McNair at the tail end of his career, followed by Kyle Bowler, and then a young and up-and-coming Joe Flacco. And after playing 5 seasons in Baltimore, Clayton would later play for the St. Louis Rams before announcing his retirement. The final player drafted before Aaron Rodgers was corner Fabian Washington, taken by the Oakland Raiders out of Nebraska. This is how close the Raiders were to having Aaron Rodgers lead their team for many years to come. And despite having a 6-year NFL career, Fabian Washington, like many other Raiders first-round picks, would never really pan out in Oakland. And as a matter of fact, it was so bad that Washington once said that he would have traded himself in order to get out of Oakland. And he would in fact get his wish by being traded to the Baltimore Ravens the following year in 2008. And while in Baltimore, he was a 3-year starter there and would only have 1 interception in his entire time there. Poor play would cause him to become a free agent, where he would sign with the New Orleans Saints at the start of the 2011 season. But a hamstring injury caused him to be placed on IR, where later on into the season, the Saints would just go ahead and release him altogether, thus ending his NFL career. In conclusion, could Aaron Rodgers have been the same quarterback that he is today had he have gone to a team like the 49ers, the Vikings, the Raiders, or the Browns? I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that 21 teams missed out on a generational talent at quarterback. At age 38, Rodgers is still playing at an elite level at quarterback, keeping the Packers afloat as one of the top teams in the NFL. I really want to see whether or not he can lead the Packers to another Super Bowl, or if he decides to just leave Green Bay altogether. What do you think? Thank you for watching the video. If you liked the video, like and comment how you think his career would have gone had he have gone to another team, whether or not Aaron Rodgers will win MVP this season, and if he can bring the Green Bay Packers to another Super Bowl. And if you like me, subscribe.